How are you?
Tired.
Tired. How's your paper coming? Or do you have any questions that we?
Yes, I read your comments and I think about the primary sources for my paper. I didn't have all what I wrote last semester was taken from the internet, so there's no printed paper or any book I found here.
Okay.
That is way too important.
Did you find any primary research articles related to differentiated instruction?
The ones I got last semester from Carol and.
Okay. And how many did you find?
3 or 4 that are closely related to my topic.
Okay. And are they all from the same author, or were you able to find?
Yes, no, it's the same.
Okay, so we need to maybe try to find
someone else different.
Preferably, because we don't want to have all articles from the same author. Let's see what I got here. Okay, here I just did a search on differentiated instruction, and I did a complete text search, and it comes up with 240 articles. So I'm willing to bet you can find what you need somewhere in here.
What's that page?
This is EBSCO. And all I did was, the only term I used was differentiated instruction, and just make sure you select complete text and academic articles, or peer-reviewed articles.
Complete.
Aquí dice texto completo y publicaciones académicas arbitradas. So you have to select those, but because by default
Texto
they aren't.
completo. Okay.
See? And then search. So I would recommend, in fact, not even, I would find the most current articles that you can find on differentiated instruction that aren't Tomlinson, because Tomlinson's the one that came up with it. But if you can find other articles better, because they're going to mention Tomlinson, they're going to mention the authors that came up with the term. And we've talked about this, I think, a little bit about this in the past. With differentiated instruction, there are 3 aspects to it. You can differentiate the content, you can differentiate the process and the product. And for your purposes, when you want to research that, you need to kind of figure out how, what you want to observe. If you're looking at how teachers are differentiating, you have to look at it in those 3 aspects. And so I would try to find primary research articles to help you determine which aspects of those 3 you want to focus on, right? If you want to dig deep into one of those 3, or if you want to take more of a holistic research view and look at the 3. But
I'd like to focus more on the product. what comes before I apply what I'm looking for. Because right now I changed my school and I have another group which has 20 students and there are 3 leaders, innate leaders. So I like the idea to have them being part of my research.
When you say leaders, who can you describe?
There are 2 girls and 1 boy who are the most intelligent of the class. So they are always doing what the teacher says. So for example, the teacher says instructions and they...
Okay. Okay.
No, ahorita habla.
¿Necesitas
Nada más iba a
algo?
preguntarle, pero ahorita que termine.
Bueno, ¿sí?
Sí, sí, sí.
Bueno, okay. So,
And so if the rest of the class do not understand, then they are in charge of explain them again what they are asked to do.
and how does this link to differentiated instruction, focusing on differentiating products?
What comes before I apply what I'm looking for, to have the students who never do something in my class, so to have them working by being helped first by their classmates
Uh-huh.
and at the end by me.
Okay. So when I think about differentiation and I look at product, for me, that is the students have choices in what type of products that they can complete. Like, how do you differentiate? If I'm a teacher, when I look at my semester class, I'm going to say I'm going to make sure that my students are doing different products, that they're not all doing the same product throughout the whole semester, that there are different products that they complete, that maybe they have choice in the products that they do, maybe the same assignment, they can do different products, that they don't all have to do the same product. So that's what comes to mind when I think differentiating the product. So maybe they do brochures, maybe some do videos, maybe some do some sort of web page. Those are all different products. Those are examples of products, the end product. If you want to look at differentiating process, maybe they all do a brochure, but they all choose how they're going to work to complete that one product, that brochure. That's differentiating the process. Differentiating the content would be like, okay, we're going to do a brochure, right? And the process may be differentiated or not, but that the content of that brochure, the students have some degree of freedom in choosing what to include the content in that brochure. So maybe the content has to deal with sports, maybe the content has to do with medicine. So in general, those are 3 aspects of differentiation or differentiating the classroom. So this is what you need to think about as far as what aspects of differentiation do you want to examine, that you want to investigate, to do research on. And the example that you provided, you talk about roles, student roles. You have 3 leaders, okay? But my question would be, maybe how does their role, or how are those roles integrated into the differentiation of instruction?
So I think it would be better to focus on the process. Because if I focus on the content would be the product, so the main brochure, what they all did. But if I focus on the process, it would be in how they are working by themselves in a whole.
All right. So another thing to think about is, because, and I know you're drawing your conclusions now based on what you've done last semester and your own class, but this semester you're going to be observing other teachers. So, that may, that's just another aspect. Like, you're not going to know what student leaders, you're going to be faced with when you start doing your research.
Carla told me about that, and she told me that another teacher would go to my classroom and so that I deliver just my lesson plans and look, this is what I am planning to do, I will observe, and that she could perform my class with my lesson plan and having in mind what I'm looking for.
I wouldn't recommend using any of your classes. No. Because this is still, it's almost like, it's kind of a quasi action research. I mean, I would recommend, if you want to do an intervention, fine, but I would observe someone else's class. I would not have involve your students at all, because that's more, you want to focus on what other teachers are doing, and you want to, this semester we are looking for, we would like for you to observe other teachers and other groups, like not your own groups, because even though you bring in another teacher and it's still your own group, and there's still a level of partiality. It's very subjective. Even though another teacher's coming in, you're basically telling them to do this, teach this, and it's your own group. You know your students, and we don't. So the idea is that it's more objective instead of subjective. And how can it be more objective? Is if you follow and observe someone else, another group, some students you don't know. The teacher you may or may not know, but it's a group external to your own teaching context. So we separate you as a teacher and versus you as a researcher. Yeah. So
how many different groups should I?
It all depends on this research question. This is like, it depends. We have to narrow down your research problem. We have to know what you're going to examine in your unit of analysis and your research design. Once we have all that, then we can figure out how many groups, how many teachers, and all the other logistical issues. So, I wish to learn more about differentiated instruction within a mixed abilities group, because I want to find out. What do you want to find out?
Where is it?
So we're looking here now at the question. So I wish to learn more about differentiated instruction in mixed abilities group because I want to find out. Now we need like a question word. What, why, how, where, when?
Well, the way that establishing roles helps them succeed a task.
Alright, because I want to find out, ¿qué más?
How establishing roles helps them succeeding a task.
Okay. How establishing roles, ¿qué más?
Helps them succeeding a task.
Alright, so how establishing roles helps to differentiate the process.
The process, yeah.
Okay, so how setting up student roles helps differentiate the process or the learning process in the English language classroom. Okay, in order to
help all the students getting involved and participating in the EFL classes.
Okay, or in order to allow the low level and high level students.
The what?
The low level and high, because you're talking about mixed abilities.
Yes.
So what you want to do all of this so that the low level students and the high level students are engaged, are participating.
Yes.
Right. So that's basically, that's what you need to clarify here. Not just all. I wouldn't say all students. I would just say the low level, because the students in the middle are participating. That's not the problem. The problem is in the mixed abilities, the ones that are really low and the ones that are bored because they've already been there, they've done that. So those are the students you're focusing on. I mean, in a sense, right? So that would be this practical significance part.
Okay. Should I?
So what I'd like for you to do is, reword this, and I'm asking everyone to upload this information all of this, the 4 steps, if you go into modules and go into student thesis list, and we're recording all of these sessions, so you can also go back and see what I see and on my screen here. But if you go to student thesis list and you go underneath your name, you can add, just as Diego's done, step 1 through 4, and add all of the information from this handout that we did in week 1, the applied research problem that we just talked about. Next we need to talk about step 2, what you wish to examine. So what do you wish to examine in your research specifically? Something that you can measure.
It would be like the process that you all are following, if all of them are working by having the roles.
More specific? I mean, think about the way in which you're going to collect data. You can observe, you can do interviews, questionnaires, focus groups. So think about some of those and what you would be asking. What are you going to be measuring specifically? And this relates a lot to step 3, what's your unit of analysis. But what more specifically are you going to be examining?
It would be like giving a grade for each participation within a group.
All right, so let's think of the practicalities of doing the research. If you're going to focus on the process, you need to be able to observe enough classes where they are demonstrating, giving you evidence about the process. So this would mean some sort of task, some sort of performance task or task-based learning, right? If a teacher's not doing task-based learning or not doing performance tasks, that's not going to help you, right?
No.
All right, so you need to be able to find teachers who are doing some sort of task-based learning. So based on that, what could you analyze of those tasks? Like because you're mentioning something about student roles, student leadership roles. So what?
It would be by observable means to notice if all of them are really working.
And what is working?
Doing something within the work.
And what are you going to measure?
The way they perform or achieve the task for the class.
But you're focusing on the process. Right, so see, and I'm not trying to frustrate you or anything, but it has. I want us to get clear, because for right now it's not clear for me. Right, it's still kind of where we want to go, where you want to go, and I don't want to. And I'm not trying to talk you out of anything here, but this has to be clear. What are you going to the process thinking, okay, so one day they do this part of the task, tomorrow they're doing this part of the task. All right, so what is it that you're going to be measuring, right? And that's what we need to find out. If you find examples in those 240 different articles, if you find 1 or 2 articles that focus on something about process and differentiated leadership roles, maybe, then you might get some ideas there. The same way with product. Same way with content. How do they differentiate content? Does the teacher say everybody has to read this book and work on this book only, or does the teacher say find an article on the web, on the internet or in the internet, and do something? So we have to find these, and it's too much, I think, to look at the whole content, process, and product. I think we need to choose 1 or 2 of those aspects of differentiation. And the easiest way to do that is to find research. And there's plenty of research there. So what I think we need to do is I want to give you a little bit more time to look and find those 2 or 3 or hopefully 4 articles that talk about some aspect of differentiated instruction that interests you, that you think you can do, that you can measure. But step 2 and step 3 both are really critical, because if you can't figure out, and it's not enough to say, I'm going to measure behaviors, I'm going to measure conduct, I'm going to measure attitudes. It has to be more specific. It's a type of behavior, but what type? What precisely are you going to measure? And if that's clear in your mind, then we're on our way to good research questions.
For example, the way they behave when they are in groups and they have to complete a task.
But so how do they behave? So if they're talking, like, what are you measuring? Are you going to be
giving ideas, or at least
so
writing
talking
something?
or writing?
Yes, at least.
All right, so imagine you have, are they working in groups? Or are they working, are you going to focus on, I'm thinking about, you're going to have to record them, no? If you want them to, if you want to know, measure how much are communicating, you're going to have to measure it. So you're going to have to record if they're speaking, or if they're writing, you're going to have to obtain a copy of whatever they write.
Yeah.
So if you're going to record students, are you going to record the whole group? Are they working individually? See the problem there? It's like, well, yeah, you don't know if they're going to be working individually, in pairs, and groups, and then if they're working in pairs, how you find primary research articles. Right now we're just kind of talking in the dark here. Find articles. Right? And you're going to find articles that you can say, you know what, I'm going to do the same thing, or I'm going to duplicate, or I'm going to modify a little bit this research. I'm going to do something very, very similar to this research, or these 2-3 different types of research. You might even find some instruments. You might even find research questions. Okay. So what I'd like to do, I'd like for you to, this weekend and as soon as you can, read as much as you can, find those 2 or 3 articles, and see me before your next tutoring session. So it's clear, this is clear, this needs to be done right away. This is urgent, because you really can't start your literature review thoughtfully until we have this completed. Because this tells us where we're going to go, where you're going to go, the direction of your study. All right? So I think we need to do that. Once you have completed this, okay, once you've read your articles, add this information to this page in Canvas.
Okay.
Do you see where I'm at? If you go into modules for week 1, there's a link called Student Thesis List. And at the bottom,
Students Thesis List.
At the bottom, you'll see your name, and you can copy and paste the bullet points, step 1, step 2, step 3, and step 4. And you can edit the page on the right-hand side. It should have an option to edit.
Yes.
And once you have read the articles and you have thought about all of these aspects, update this information here. If you want me to look at it, send me an email in Canvas, or if you want to come by, we can talk about it. But this has to be really clear as we get started, okay? And also don't forget your reflection for this week.
Can I take back some of my paper?
This is yours, yeah. There you go.
And where do I upload the second reflection?
If you go to, you can go to discussions or modules. If you want to work in weeks, under modules for week 2, there's a reflection 2.
Are there still some questions to answer?
They're the same questions.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the same questions. So.
This part?
Sorry?
This part? Okay.
and then just reply just like last week.
Okay, I will, and I will read as much as possible. You told me it's in EBSCO, right?
Yes, and see me next week if if you still have doubts or not sure about the direction. Just come and see me or ask me in Canvas, so you don't get behind. That you can start. Next week. I'd like for you to start developing your literature review, and when you start writing your literature review after you've completed the handout, if you go to modules for week 2, developing an argument. This is very important, and there's a lot of tips on how to organize your literature review. So this is where you'll access information that will help you kind of order your claims and how you want to organize your work. So very important to read this before you start developing your literature review.
So for next week, as soon as possible, I will modify these,
Yes.
upload the steps, the reflection,
Mhm.
and read as much as possible.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, and then actually you're going to read as much as possible first, then you're going to update. Yeah, you need to read first and then update that, and then once we're okay with that and it's very clear in the direction of your research, then continue with developing your literature review after having read developing an argument in week 2. So
Do I have to download the books that I find?
well, I don't think you can download the whole books, but you can, I think, save certain pages. Like if from eBrary gives you an option of copying or downloading as a PDF file certain pages. So if you find some information from certain books, you can download those. You also have the ability in eBrary to save bookmarks.
Yeah.
So you sign in with your own name, and you can save the bookmarks. And I usually do that. I usually don't print out anything. I save bookmarks, that way I can easily go back and see the work that I found there. All right.
Yes.
Okay, Hope. Well, good luck. Have a good weekend, and we'll work next week. And
Hopefully.
just see me if you have doubts. Right? If you're
I will.
not sure about what to do, just let me know.
Okay, thanks.
All right. See you.